You boot up Terraria, right? And you're just standing there.
Yeah, with nothing but that basic little copper short sword.
Exactly. You've got this vibrant 2D world in front of you, a screen full of like bouncing green slimes. And you are just looking at this pixel art wilderness, wondering how on earth you are ever going to go from poking slimes to becoming the absolute ruler of this place.
It's the absolute definition of open world paralysis, really.
Oh, completely. Because usually, when you drop into a new game, there is a clear path, a glowing line on the ground, or a quest marker floating in the sky. But here, nothing.
Right. You have total freedom from the very first second, which is simultaneously exhilarating and just completely terrifying. There is no curated guided tour. It's just you and the dirt.
You and the dirt, yeah. And you start poking at that dirt, maybe chopping a tree, and it feels like a pure sandbox. You're just building a little wood box to survive the night.
A very fragile wood box.
Yes, very fragile. But we know, and if you're listening to this deep dive, you've probably felt it, that Terraria is hiding something. It hides this incredibly rigid, unforgiving structure right beneath the surface of that open sandbox.
And uncovering that invisible scaffolding is precisely our mission today.
Right. We are going to dig into the definitive roadmap of Terraria's boss progression. We've got an extensive breakdown from the gamer, and we're going to use it to map out the exact order you need to tackle these behemoths.
We're also going to cover how to survive the notoriously brutal transition into hard mode, which is huge.
So huge. And how the game uses these massive encounters to fundamentally manipulate your playstyle.
Yeah, because what amazed me the most, really digging into the underlying architecture of this progression, is realizing how the entire game is fundamentally driven by one thing.
Prepping for the next big fight.
Exactly. Prepping for the next big fight. You think you're just building a cool base or, digging a neat elevator, but really the game's systems are subtly, relentlessly pushing you toward the next boss arena.
Which is why understanding this sequence isn't just about memorizing a kill order.
Right. It's about understanding game design. When you see the progression laid out, you realize that every single action you take, every piece of ore you mine, every accessory you reforge is a calculated, necessary step toward the final encounter with the Moon Lord.
The developers aren't just throwing monsters at you. They are systematically teaching you how to survive their world.
Yes. So let's look at that very first lesson. You're leaving those green slimes behind, you're exploring, and suddenly the game throws the Eye of Cthulhu at you.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the source breakdown makes it clear that while there are a few optional detours, this is the very first required hurdle to actually progress your world.
It is the absolute gatekeeper of the early game.
But the way it spawns is what gets me. You don't necessarily have to go looking for it. It has a 33% chance to spawn organically at night.
But only if you hit specific thresholds.
Right. You need 200 HP, 10 defense, and a few NPCs moved into your town.
It's a brilliant piece of dynamic pacing. The game isn't just operating on a timer, it is actively monitoring your character sheet.
See, I have to push back on whether that's actually brilliant or if it's just secretly punishing players for exploring.
Punishing? How so?
Well, it feels a little unfair, doesn't it? It's like a pop quiz you didn't know you were studying for.
I mean, I guess I can see that.
Yeah, because you've been diligently exploring the underground, finding life crystals to get your health up to 200. You're crafting some basic armor to get that 10 defense, feeling pretty good about your survivability.
You feel like you're finally getting the hang of things.
Exactly. And then the game says, oh, you think you're safe, you think you've mastered the caverns. Here is a massive floating demonic eyeball.
But think about what those thresholds represent mechanically.
Okay, I'm listening.
200 HP means you've successfully navigated the underground caverns multiple times to find those life crystals.
True, you can't just get those on the surface.
Right. And 10 defense means you've actively engaged with the game's mining and crafting systems. You've likely upgraded from wood or copper to, say, iron or silver armor.
So you're not just running around in your starting gear.
Exactly. The game is essentially auditing your mastery of the basics. It's waiting until you have definitively proven you understand the fundamental survival mechanics before it introduces the first major stress test.
Ah, so it prevents a completely new player from getting endlessly spawn camped by a boss they physically cannot defeat.
Precisely. It's a safety net, disguised as a jump scare.
That makes sense. It's a gate, but a hidden one. Now, if you want to take control and not wait for that 33% chance, you can summon it anywhere at any time.
Right, using a suspicious-looking eye.
Which you craft at a demon or crimson altar. but that organic spawn, that's the game deciding the training wheels are off.
And once you survive that, it immediately forces you to face the actual corruption of your world.
Which brings us to the second major roadblock. And this one entirely depends on the world generation seed you got when you created your save file.
Right. You are either dealing with the corruption or the crimson.
If you rolled a corruption world, you are descending into those deep vertical chasms. You have to break 3 shadow orbs down there.
Or use worm food.
Right, to summon the Eater of Worlds, a massive segmented worm.
But if you rolled the crimson, you're navigating those twisting, claustrophobic, fleshy caves.
Ugh, the crimson is so gross.
It really is. And down there, you break 3 crimson hearts, or use a bloody spine to face the brain of Cthulhu.
It's such a stark divergence early on. But what is the design philosophy here? Why give us a massive worm in one world and a teleporting brain with creepers in another?
It's about shifting the mechanical focus.
Okay, how so?
Well, the Eye of Cthulhu teaches you about managing time and basic movement, right? Because you have to fight it in the open air at night. You can just run in a straight line on the surface.
Yeah, you just build a long wooden platform and plane.
Right. You are usually forced to fight them down in those cramped, hostile biomes. You have to learn how to manipulate your environment, build platforms in a small space, and use piercing weapons for the worm or crowd control for the brain's minions.
You are no longer just fighting a boss, you are fighting the biome itself.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Which perfectly sets up the third required boss, Skeletron. Because if the world evils teach you to fight in enclosed spaces, Skeletron teaches you that some areas are strictly off limits until you earn the right to be there.
A harsh lesson for a lot of new players.
Seriously. You can't summon him anywhere, and he doesn't randomly ambush you based on your health. You have to go to the dungeon entrance, speak to the old man at night, and trigger it manually.
It is a massive geographical roadblock. Skeletron is the ultimate gatekeeper of the early game.
And you cannot safely enter the dungeon to get the vital loot inside, like the Muramasa or the Cobalt Shield, until you defeat him.
If you try to bypass him and just walk down the stairs early, the game actively, brutally punishes you.
Yes, with the unkillable Dungeon Guardians, which is such a funny, terrifying shock to the system the first time you play.
It really is.
You think, I'll just sneak in, grab a chest, and run.
Yeah.
And then a giant spinning skull instantly vaporizes you.
It does thousands of damage. You just explode.
It's the game enforcing its boundaries in a sandbox that normally lets you dig anywhere. You have to respect the structure.
And Skeletron forces you to build a dedicated arena outside the dungeon. You have to place your campfires, get your buff potions ready. It demands preparation in a way the previous fights didn't.
Right. And once you finally beat him and get that dungeon loot, the critical path takes you deep underground again, this time to the jungle for the queen bee.
Yeah, you have to locate a beehive structure in the underground jungle and destroy the larvae inside.
Or craft an abomination to summon her.
The abomination. I will never get over how good some of these item names are.
It's so good. But before we get to the absolute turning point of the game, I want to look at a couple of fascinating distractions.
The optional bosses.
Exactly. Because while you have this critical path, I, evil, Skeletron B, there are 2 completely optional bosses hanging out in this pre-hard mode phase.
King Slime and the Deerclops.
Right. And the question for the listener is, why should a player even bother with them if they don't advance the core progression state of the world?
It's a valid question. They don't unlock any new ores or biomes.
I think it comes down to the spectacle, but also how they reinforce the game's living ecosystem. Let's look at King Slime. The spawn conditions are just so bizarre.
Oh, they really are.
It can be summoned if you kill 150 slimes during a slime rain weather event. Or you can craft a slime crown.
But the best detail is that occasionally he can just naturally appear in the outer thirds of the map.
Yes. You can just be building a fishing pier at the ocean, minding your own business, and suddenly a slime the size of a house drops on your head.
It keeps the overworld from feeling static. It reminds you that the world is alive.
And then there is the Deerclops, which is a fantastic crossover from Don't Starve Together.
A really cool addition to the game.
To fight him, you have to be in the snow biome during a blizzard. And you can summon him using a deer thing. But notice the alternate spawn condition.
He can spawn organically during a blizzard at midnight, but only if you have 9 defense or 200 HP.
There's that magic number again, the exact same threshold as the Eye of Cthulhu.
It's a recurring design motif. The game scales its ambient danger based on your hard-earned vitality, even for completely optional content.
So even the optional stuff checks your stats.
Exactly. The game recognizes when you are no longer a fragile beginner, and it dynamically adjusts the environmental threats to match your power level. It ensures the world always feels dangerous.
Okay, but all of this, the giant eyeballs, the massive slimes, the dungeon skulls, is all just a warm-up.
It really is.
It is literally just preparation for the paradigm shift. Which brings us to the wall of flesh,
The pivotal turning point of the entire game.
the point of no return. The source guide explicitly advises players to collect the absolute best weapons possible, max out their health to 400, and secure all necessary accessories before taking this step.
Because defeating the wall of flesh permanently alters the fabric of your world.
And the way you trigger this fight is incredibly dark, especially when you think about it from a narrative perspective.
It's quite grim.
To summon the wall of flesh, you have to dig all the way down to the underworld. And you take a guide voodoo doll, which drops from specific flying demons down there, and you throw it into the lava.
But the crucial detail is that the guide NPC must be alive in your world when you do this.
Because the summoning mechanic literally requires his sacrifice. He dies the exact moment the doll hits the lava.
It is a massive subversion.
I just want to pause and appreciate the sheer shock value of that. The guide is the one who shows up on day one. He gives you tips. He shows you crafting recipes when you hand him a piece of gel or wood. He's your first anchor in the game.
He's the only friendly face you have at the start.
Right. And to trigger the hardest part of the game, you have to ritualistically sacrifice him. It's a massive subversion of the helpful tutorial NPC trope.
What's fascinating here is the psychological and mechanical shift that occurs. Because the exact second the wall of flesh dies, you get a system message. The ancient spirits of light and dark have been released.
Gives me chills every time.
And suddenly you are in hard mode.
I've always thought hard mode is a deceptive name. It makes it sound like you just toggled a difficulty setting in a menu, like going from normal to heroic.
Right, but it's not a setting.
It's a fundamental rewriting of your world's ecosystem.
Exactly. In the moments right before you fight the wall of flesh, you are the apex predator of your world. You have the molten armor, the knight's edge sword, you've conquered the dungeon, you've plundered the jungle. Nothing scares you.
You're basically a god.
And then instantly upon the boss's defeat, you are thrown right back to the bottom of the food chain.
Instant.
The new enemies have massively inflated health pools. They deal incredible damage. The corruption or crimson starts rapidly spreading across your map. And a brand new biome, the Hallow, tears through the center of your world.
It is a complete reset of the power dynamic.
That's a hard reset.
Which brings us to some of the most vital advice in the entire guide. Surviving that exact transition. Because when hard mode begins, your instinct might be to look for the next boss.
Do not do that.
Right, don't. It's like surviving a shipwreck. You wash up on a beach. You don't immediately try to go hunt a shark.
You scramble for driftwood.
You look for a coconut. You try not to starve. Relate this directly to the panic you feel in-game. You step outside your house, and a possessed armor basically one-shots you.
If you try to skip the gear gathering phase here, you will hit an absolute brick wall. The game demands that you rebuild your arsenal from scratch before you even think about boss summoning items.
So what is the driftwood we are scrambling for? The guide gives us 3 immediate non-negotiable priorities for early hard mode.
First, head to that brand new hallowed biome and hunt for mimics.
These are the enemies disguised as chests, right?
Yes, and they hit like a truck. But they drop incredibly powerful early hard mode weapons like the Daedalus Stormbow or the Flying Knife. You need that firepower immediately.
Okay, so weapons first. What's second?
Second, you need to visit the Witch Doctor NPC in the jungle at night to purchase leaf wings.
Wings.
Mobility is no longer a luxury in hard mode. It is an absolute necessity for survival. The enemies are too fast and hit too hard for you to just run along the ground anymore. You need verticality.
That makes total sense. And the third priority?
You need to find the demon or crimson altars, the same ones you used to craft early boss summoning items, and smash them with the pawn hammer you got from the wall of flesh.
Smashing these altars sees your world with the new tiers of hard mode ores.
Right.
Like cobalt or palladium, mithril or orichalcum, and adamantite or titanium.
That process of smashing the altars and mining the new ores cannot be overstated.
It's mandatory.
The game is implicitly telling you that your pre-hard mode gear, the stuff you spent hours and hours grinding for, is now functionally obsolete. You must engage with the new mining loop to craft armor that can actually withstand a single hit from a hard mode enemy.
And why do we need all this heavy armor and aerial mobility? for the mechanical bosses,
The first true tier of hard mode progression.
the twins, the destroyer, and Skeletron Prime.
If you look closely at the design here, you'll notice they are robotic, terrifying upgrades of the early game bosses you've already fought.
Right. The Eye of Cthulhu becomes the twins, two giant metallic eyes connected by a tether, one shooting lasers, the other breathing cursed flames.
The Eater of Worlds becomes the Destroyer, a massive mechanical worm with laser-firing probes that detach when you hit it.
And Skeletron becomes Skeletron Prime, a metallic skull with four robotic arms wielding a laser, a cannon, a saw, and a vice. It's so intense.
It really is.
I have to ask, though, is this just lazy recycling? Oh, you thought those first bosses were hard, here they are again, but metal. Why not design completely new monsters for this critical phase of the game?
It's definitely not lazy. It's a very deliberate thematic choice regarding industrialization.
Industrialization.
Yeah, pre-hard mode is very organic. You fight flesh, bone, bees, slimes. But hard mode introduces cold, unfeeling machinery. It represents how the stakes have escalated. You aren't just fighting natural monsters anymore, you're fighting engineered killing machines.
Oh, wow. Never thought about it like that.
And to summon them, you have to craft specific, highly engineered items. The mechanical eye, the mechanical worm, and the mechanical skull. You are literally assembling your own doom.
And crucially, all three must be summoned at night, returning to that early game time management pressure. You have until dawn to kill them, or they instantly kill you.
And the expert advice here from the guide is crystal clear. Do not touch these summoning items until you are fully kitted out with titanium or adamantite armor and good wings.
So all that scrambling for driftwood has to be done first.
Absolutely. These three mechanical bosses are the absolute gatekeepers to the rest of the game. You cannot progress the state of the world any further until all three are dead.
But wait, before we move on from the mechanical bosses, we have to talk about the anomaly. Here's where it gets really interesting. The guide drops a mention of something that sounds like an absolute fever dream. Medusa.
Yes. This is a bizarre, fascinating secret hidden within the game's code. Medusa is a hard mode boss, but it comes with a massive caveat.
It is a combination of all three mechanical bosses, fused together into one monstrosity.
It's wild.
Just the concept of that is terrifying. You've got Skeletron Prime's skull attached to the Destroyer's body as a spine, with the twins serving as the eyes. It's like a Voltron of nightmares. How is that even mathematically possible to survive? The screen clutter alone, with the lasers and the probes and the saws, would be insane.
It would be, which is why the source provides some very important reassurance. You only have to worry about Medusa if you are playing on a very specific secret world generation seed called the Everything Seed, or the Zenith Seed.
Thank goodness.
And even then, you have to actively summon it using a unique item called Okram's Razor, which is crafted by combining the three mechanical summoning items. So if you are on a normal world, you will not accidentally stumble into this.
It's just so cool how the game breaks its own rules for players who actively seek out these secret seeds. It's the developers acknowledging the community's skill level. Like, oh, you've mastered the normal game, you think you know the sequence, try this absolute chaos.
It's a great reward for veteran players.
But assuming you are on a normal world and you've systematically dismantled the three mechanical bosses separately, you get a message on screen. The jungle grows restless.
Which is your cue that the progression is tightening its grip. We are entering the deep jungle escalation. This is where the game's design becomes heavily interlocked.
A cascading sequence of events.
Right, because Plantera doesn't just spawn on you. You have to go deep into the underground jungle and find a specific pink Plantera's bulb to break.
Which forces a claustrophobic, terrifying fight in the dark, surrounded by mud, bouncing spike balls, and angry hornets. And you have to win, because Plantera drops an item that is absolutely essential to move forward.
The temple key.
Right, and that key leads directly to the next boss, the golem.
Yes. The temple key allows you to unlock the jungle temple, a massive lizard brick structure generated somewhere within the underground jungle.
And you have to navigate a literal maze of traps just to reach the lizard altar at the center.
Where you have to use a lizard power cell, which you find inside the temple chests, or from enemies to summon the golem.
Do you see how contained this progression loop is?
It's incredibly narrow. Unlike the early game where things might spawn randomly, here, A strictly requires B, which strictly requires C.
Right. You have to kill all three mech bosses to spawn the bulb. You kill Plantera to get the key, you use the key to get into the temple to find the cell, you use the cell to summon the golem.
And defeating the golem triggers the next strict requirement.
Which is?
Once Gollum is down, a group of 4 cultists magically appears at the dungeon entrance, the exact same location where you fought Skeletron way back in the early game.
Really? The exact same spot?
Yes, and killing those 4 cultists instantly summons the lunatic cultist boss.
The funneling effect here is masterful. Think about the narrative flow, the geographical journey. You start in the open green fields, you venture down into the underground, you go to the underworld to fight the wall of flesh.
Hard mode opens the world back up entirely, letting you fight the mechanical bosses anywhere you want as long as it's night.
But then, the game starts restricting your movement again. It funnels you from the open world back into the claustrophobic depths of the jungle for Plantera and the Golem.
And then, in a stroke of narrative genius, it sends you right back to the dungeon entrance. It brings you full circle to the very place where you faced your first major geographical roadblock.
It is such a brilliant way to show the player how far they have come. You stand on that dungeon brick, remembering how terrified you were of Skeletron, and now you're about to face down a cult worshipping a moon god. The training wheels are entirely gone.
The progression is Loctite. It forces mastery of specific environments.
But just like the pre-hard mode era, hard mode has its detours. The guide outlines 3 optional hard mode bosses and, crucially, gives very specific recommendations on when to fight them.
They act as a dynamic difficulty slider for the player.
Right. First up is Queen Slime. You summon her using gelatin crystals found in the underground hallow. The guide notes she can be defeated right at the start of hard mode.
She's essentially a stepping stone. If you're struggling with the mechanical bosses, you go fight Queen Slime for her armor and mount.
A good way to bridge the gap. Then there is the Empress of Light. You summon her by killing a rare critter called a prismatic lacewing in the hallow biome at night,
But the guide recommends fighting her after Plantera.
which implies a massive jump in difficulty. Plantera requires the defeat of all 3 mechanical bosses. So the Empress is meant for a heavily armed, highly mobile player. She is a literal bullet hell nightmare.
She really is. And then there's Duke Fishron.
Ah,
You summon him using a truffle worm as bait while fishing in the ocean biome.
now this one fascinates me. Ocean fishing sounds incredibly relaxing. It sounds like a minigame you play to unwind after fighting mechanical worms. But the guide recommends waiting until at least after the golem to fight him, or ideally, right before the final boss of the entire game.
Yes, his difficulty is off the charts.
But why would the developers hide one of the absolute hardest, fastest, most aggressive bosses behind something as peaceful as ocean fishing?
Because it's a classic subversive game design trap. It rewards curiosity with overwhelming lethal danger.
Oh, I see.
You can find that truffle worm in the glowing mushroom biomes relatively early in hard mode. You could technically risk fighting Duke Fishron with early hard mode gear.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
It is. But if you somehow manage to beat him, the weapons he drops, like the tsunami bow or the razor blade typhoon, will completely carry you through the rest of the game. It shatters the progression curve.
So you could sequence break if you're good enough.
Exactly. You can risk fighting him early for incredible gear. But the guide's extremely conservative recommendation highlights the sheer danger he poses. The developers are daring you to pull on the fishing line, knowing a monster is on the other end.
It's the ultimate risk-reward scenario. Which brings us, finally, to the end of the road. The celestial climax. The final approach to the ultimate ruler of Terraria, the Moon Lord.
The summoning condition for the Moon Lord is an apocalyptic event in itself. When you defeat the lunatic cultist at the dungeon, you don't just get an item, you trigger the lunar event.
The pillars, right?
Right. 4 celestial pillars, Solar, Vortex, Nebula, and Stardust, invade your world map. They alter the backgrounds and spawn endless hordes of endgame enemies. You have to travel across your world, systematically dismantling these pillars. It is a grueling planetary defense scenario.
It's the ultimate test of everything you have learned. Terrain management, crowd control, priority targeting, aerial mobility.
And once the 4th pillar falls, the screen goes blurry, the music cuts out, and the Moon Lord spawns directly on top of you.
You've gone from poking bouncing green slimes with a copper short sword to battling cosmic celestial pillars and a literal eldritch god. It's unbelievable.
And if you fail, if the Moon Lord kills you,
Do you have to do it all over again?
the guide points out that you don't have to do the entire cultist and pillar sequence again if you don't want to. You can craft a celestial sigil from the fragments the pillars drop to summon him directly.
Which leads perfectly into the final, vital piece of information we need to pull from this guide regarding the mechanics of the game. Resummoning.
Yes. It is heavily emphasized that every single boss in the game can be resummoned.
Every single one.
Every single one. We've mentioned the specific items, the abomination for Queen Bee, the suspicious-looking eye for the Eye of Cthulhu, the mechanical items. This isn't just a trivial detail, it's a core mechanic.
Yeah. So what does this all mean for the player?
Well, if you need practice on a boss's attack patterns, if you need to farm for a specific rare drop, like a developer armor set, or if you simply want to relive a fight and test your new weapons, you just craft the required item and summon them again.
I have to say, there's nothing quite as satisfying as taking your late-game, post-golem hard mode gear, flying over to your original arena, and summoning the Eye of Cthulhu just to vaporize it in 3 seconds. It's the best feeling in the world.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's the ultimate proof of your growth. This ability to resummon bosses isn't just a farming mechanic, it's a psychological tool.
A way to measure how far you've come.
Exactly. The boss that once terrified you, the boss that required perfect preparation, campfires, heart lanterns, and frantic dodging, eventually becomes a casual practice dummy. It perfectly encapsulates the arc of becoming the ruler of Terraria. You master the mechanics, you gather the resources, and you conquer the hierarchy of the world.
And what a massive architectural journey we've just mapped out for you today. We started with the early game prep, managing HP thresholds just to trigger the eye. We learned biomanagement fighting the world evils.
We faced the absolute tonal whiplash of sacrificing the guide to the wall of flesh.
We scrambled like castaways for mimic loot and smashed altars for hard mode ores just to survive the transition.
We systematically dismantled the industrialized mechanical nightmares, descended into the claustrophobic jungle temple to farm power cells, and fought off a literal celestial planetary invasion.
It is an incredibly deep roadmap of game design.
The scaffolding is brilliantly complex. It maintains the illusion of a completely open sandbox while meticulously guiding your experience and ensuring you learn the necessary skills to survive the next tier of danger.
But I want to leave you with a final lingering thought based on something we discussed earlier with the Medusa anomaly. The guide specifically highlights that everything's seed. A seed that completely shatters the standard rules of progression by combining major bosses into a new, terrifying monstrosity that shouldn't exist.
It is a radical, intentional departure from the rigid structure we just spent all this time outlining.
Exactly. If the game possesses a hidden code that completely rewrites the rules of engagement, what does that say about the rules we just spent an hour learning? Are they actually rigid laws, or are they just polite suggestions for the uninitiated?
That is a wonderful thought experiment to take back into the sandbox.
It really is. Now that you know exactly how the invisible scaffolding is built and where the load-bearing walls of progression are, encourage yourself to think about how you might intentionally break the sequence on your next playthrough.
Once you know the rules, you can decide exactly how to break them.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of Terraria's progression. We wish you the best of luck on your journey from Copper Short Swords to the Moon Lord. Keep exploring, keep crafting, and always, always watch out for the slime rain.